Well guys, welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you being here. If you're new to the channel, my name is Jesse Joden. This is a series I've been doing this year. It's actually going to be the final video in the series. This is called Co-Angler Diary. Basically in 2023, I decided to fish a good many tournaments as a co-angler and bring you guys along to show you guys how I approach the back of the boat, as well as give some tips and some recaps to my tournaments this year. So if you haven't been following along, I strongly encourage you to go back and watch some of my other co-angler videos, because this video I'm kind of going to bring everything together and actually explain to you guys how I approach the back of the boat in order to win tournaments. So in 2023 I fished the ABA North Carolina division. It was a 5-tournament division. I just wrapped up the 5th and final tournament. I went into Lake Norman first in Angler of the Year. I had a 4th place and a payday on Norman in the spring. I ended up winning High Rock during the spawn and got big fish. Had one during the shad spawn in May where I got 7th. That was my worst finish of the year in that particular division. And then I fished later in the post spawn, bluegill spawn in June on Lake Wylie, where I also was able to get another win and got big fish in that tournament as well, all as a co-angler. Going into the two-day tournament on Lake Norman, it was the championship. I needed a top 3 to guarantee Angler of the Year. Well, was able to go into that tournament and win. I'm really proud of this one. Lake Norman can be a booger in the fall. It was in late September. The lake was going through a turnover, but I was still able to finesse up some fish, as well as trigger one big one on day 1 to put me to the winning weight. So in those 5 tournaments, I was able to get 3 wins, 1 4th, that was a payday, 2 lunkers, and then a check that came with Angler of the Year. As well as those 5 tournaments, I fished 2 BFLs. I got 3rd at Cayuga, which we actually recapped that video last week, so be sure to check it out. And I got 7th earlier in the year at Bugs Island. And then I also fished the Toyota Series on the Potomac River. Didn't do real good in that tournament. I had a rough day 2. I was on top of my game. I was really kind of observing my boater. I actually fished with Mike Iaconelli on the 2nd day, and I was really just trying to soak in all the information that he was throwing my way. I learned a lot that day. Unfortunately, I fell about 7 ounces short of getting a paycheck in that tournament. And then I also fished a Bassmaster Open on Bugs Island back in May, and ended up doing pretty good. I finished 9th place. That come with a pretty good paycheck. So 2023 was a great year. I was able to hit some of my goals I set at the beginning of the year. Let's get into how to win out of the back of the boat, how I approach the back of the boat as far as fishing as a co-angler. I see this mistake made by a lot of co-anglers, especially younger ones. Have I ever made this mistake? Absolutely. Then the tip is, let's not play the blame game. Let's not blame our boaters for our failures. It is extremely easy after a bad day of fishing to blame the boater. I think a lot of co-anglers that tend to do this, because you actually see it, it seems like it's the same co-anglers all the time. Oh, my boater. And it's like, well, geez, how many bad boaters are you gonna get? Have I had them? Yeah. Out of the 100 tournaments I've probably fished in my life as a co-angler, I might have gotten 3 or 4 really bad ones that completely took me out of the game. So we're looking at like 3% of all the boaters I've ever drawn. Does it happen? Sure. Can situations arise to where it's just a bad day for a co-angler? Sure. But let's not look for reasons to blame our boater, because all that's going to do is hinder your ability to read the water, read the conditions, present your bait efficiently. It's going to take you out of the game. Let's not look for reasons to blame our boater. Let's take accountability for our actions, for our presentations, for our decisions, and for our execution out there on the water. All right, that was my little rant. I don't know, I have a pet peeve about co-anglers always blaming their boaters for their failures. We're all human. We're all going to have bad days out there, so let's not blame somebody else for our bad day. So when fishing as a co-angler from a strategic standpoint, there's 2 ways I go about fishing, and that is either trying to target a kicker or trying to get as many bites as I possibly can. how I approach the back of the boat really starts with what kind of tournament am I fishing. As a co-angler, some organizations, your limit's going to be 3. Bassmaster, Bass Nation, ABA, and then other organizations, MLF, the BFLs, Toyota Series, your limit's going to be 5. Is there any difference on how I approach the back of the boat? 130 million %. When it comes to a 3-fish limit tournament, my mind is fixated on getting a kicker bite. I feel that to be able to win a 3-fish limit tournament, I need to have a giant, or at least one kicker that gets me up there. Now, when it comes to a 5-fish limit tournament as a co-angler, I feel like I need to get a limit. I need to get 5 fish because it's going to be very hard to win if I'm only coming in with 3 or 4 fish or whatever. So what does this mean for as far as on the water? Well, let's just take the Carolinas, for example, that's loaded with docks. In a 3-fish limit tournament, I'm more prone probably to pick up my jig or throw a mag draft or throw a buzz bait, trying to get that big kicker bite. In a 5-fish limit tournament, that's where I'm going to be more prone to pick up a drop shot, a Nico rig, a shaky head, a pop R, a fluke, a little swim bait, you know what I mean? So there are ways to target more bites and ways to target bigger fish, and they kind of are opposite from one another. So keep that in mind, and stretch what you're trying to do strategically. Like I said, if it's a 3-fish limit tournament, I'm going after one big fish. In my mind, I just have this fixation on I need one big one. I need one bite. And I really try to, train myself to think like that. When it's a 3-fish limit tournament, I am like going after one bite. I'll tell everybody, I'm here to catch one fish. And that hopefully is going to be a 4 to 8 pounder or whatever, wherever you're at. I want to catch one big one. Hopefully I get that big bite and I can get it in the boat, and along the way I get a couple other smaller bites at least to fill out my limit. But that's the way my mind works. I feel like if I can target a big fish for 8 hours, I'll get at least 3 shots on goal, and hopefully I need to execute on all 3 or 4 or 5 bites that I do get. That's probably the approach I need to take into a 5-fish limit tournament, because I have actually never won a BFL, never done much good at the Toyota Series. I have had a lot of success in the 3-fish limit tournaments, and I'm not saying I haven't cashed a lot of checks, in the 5-fish limit tournaments, but I've never won one. And that's probably because I do play a little bit more conservatively. When it comes to 5-fish, I feel like I need to get as many bites as possible, at least until I get a limit, and then we can switch up and try to target a big one. But let's be honest, as a co-angler, I don't care where you're at, getting 5 fish can be a task at sometimes, and usually it takes all day just to get those 5. So that's the way I approach it as far as what type of tournament I'm fishing, whether it's a 3-fish limit or a 5-fish limit. Now let's get into the absolute juice of this video, the money, the part that I really do not want to share with you guys. And that's basically, how do we fish out of the back of the boat to be successful? And really it's a hard thing, because we have one other thing that we have to pay attention to. When you're going out as a boater and fishing, you just have to really just make the cast, pick which bait you want to throw or whatever. As a co-angler, we got to make good decisions. We got to be able to read the water. We got to be able to, read the conditions, choose the right color, and present the bait the way to generate a bite. We have to execute on any bites that we do get, because let's be honest, sometimes we're not going to get very many shots on goal as a co-angler. But we actually have to pay attention to one other thing, and that is our boater. We have to see if he's missing anything. If he's going on a bank and he misses a cast, is he fishing really fast, he's not hitting every obvious target, you need to be able to pick out the stuff that he missed and be able to hit that, as well as just know what he's doing, what is he targeting. As fishermen, there are 3 things that a fisherman can target. I don't care if it's a bass fisherman, a walleye fisherman, anything, saltwater. I don't know much about saltwater fishing. A river fisherman, somebody that's fishing off the bank. There are 3 things that we can target as fishermen. What are those? Is it grass, rock, and wood? No. It's top, middle, bottom. what I mean by this is there are 3 things that we can target when we make a cast. There are 3 places we can put our bait, whether it's on the top, somewhere in the middle, or on the bottom. As a co-angler, what I do is I watch my boater. If he's targeting the top, I'm going to target the bottom. If he's targeting the bottom, I might be targeting the middle or the top. It is as simple as that. I am always targeting a different part of that water column than what my boater's targeting, because there are going to be fish that are suspended. There are going to be fish that are feet on the bottom. There's going to be fish that are right up on the surface that we really can't see, but they're up there. Number one thing that you can do to be a better co-angler, and that is to target a different part of that water column than what your boater's targeting. And I don't care if you're in a 40 foot of water or 2 foot of water. You can target top, middle, bottom. You know, if you're in 2 foot of water, you can flip a jig, flip a tube, whatever. You're targeting the bottom. Or you can throw a spinnerbait, targeting the middle. Or you can throw a buzzbait or a frog and target the top. A fish will react to those baits completely different. If he throws to a fish, if he flips to a fish, now if it's really aggressive, so don't eat anything that comes to it, yeah, he's going to catch that fish. But there are going to come times, and a lot of times they could be big fish that are very particular on how they want to feed. If he's targeting the bottom and catching a bunch of fish, well, you just need to keep targeting the middle or the top, because you're eventually going to he's going to run across a fish that does not want to feed off the bottom. And sometimes these could be better than average fish. That fish really is targeting the middle or the top. And as a co-angler, we can pick up those scraps. If you're targeting the same thing he's targeting, well, and if he's doing his job and hitting the targets like he should, and not giving up any scraps, you're going to find it extremely hard to find a fish that wants to bite the same zone of the water as what the boater's throwing. Now, this could be a little different if he's throwing a moving bait versus a slow bait. You know, if he's throwing a crankbait on the bottom and burning it back to the boat, keeping it literally on the bottom, yeah, you might be able to throw a jig and drag it a little bit slower and generate bites. But the main thing is to try to target, if you can, a different section of that water column, and at the very least, change up the speed from what the boater's throwing. If he's throwing a moving bait, you should try, as long as the boat's not moving at a high rate of speed to where it really limits what you can do as far as your presentation. What I try to do, if my boater's throwing something fast, I try to throw something slow. And if he's throwing something slow, I'm going to try to throw something a little bit quicker, and I'm going to try to target a different zone of that water column. So, well guys, I hope you learned something in this video. That is one tip I really do not want to share. As my career went on, as I would fish and fish boater, I cannot tell you how many times I would draw co-anglers that would ask me what we would be doing, and I'd be like, well, we'll be fishing docks. Okay, with what? And I would tell them, well, I'll be throwing a jig. And usually I would say, I think you could generate some bites if you throw a shaky head. But like one crazy example was when I won Kerr as a boater in an ABA tournament, Bugs Island. I told my co-angler before the tournament, the night before, when you make your phone call, he asked me, hey, what are we going to be doing? I'm like, well, I'm going to be starting the morning with a whopper plopper, and I'll be fishing that, down some steeper rocky banks until the sun gets up, and then I'm going to be throwing a jig up under docks. And I can't make this up. He literally showed up with 2 rods, a whopper plopper and a jig, and I caught I don't know how many fish, and he just couldn't catch anything behind me. It's because the fish that I didn't catch, because I promise you I didn't catch them all, the ones that passed up what I was throwing, he would give them the exact same look. And then later in the day, I finally gave him one of my rods and said, here, throw this Ned rig. I promise you, you'll get some bites. And he did. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to execute real well. He did catch a couple fish, and he probably could have had a chance to do really good in the tournament if he executed a little bit better, but that's going to happen. But that was just a funny, I just can't believe co-anglers will throw the exact same thing as their boaters. That's one thing I never ever got, but like I said, if you can target a different part of that water column, you're going to be a lot more successful. It kills me to share that secret with you guys. Hopefully, none of you guys watching this video fishes against me as a co-angler. If you do and you recognize me or you know who I am, leave me a comment down below. I'd like to know who's watching these videos because I have no clue. But I appreciate you guys being here. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions for me, you can drop me a comment down below. It's greatly appreciated. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.